whether yes or not. You have the information.
Yeah, first I want to greet you all, in particular the young people, the honorary guest, the Royal Highness, Miss Espinosa, and of course Felix. And when looking into the 2-degree or 1.5-degree topic, then the problem is that in Paris we agreed on something we want to achieve, but it's absolutely not clear that we will achieve it. And this is quite the usual case. So we very often had big announcements and we didn't make it. So it's absolutely not clear that we will make it, and part of the debate misses the point. I have a picture here that shows that Paris helped us to go from the red line down to the blue line. And you see what is missing for 2 degrees or for 1.5 degree. The gap is about 500 billion tons of CO2 until 2050. You can say essentially politics did half the job, but the other half is not done. I think it's good what politics achieved, and they couldn't achieve more. So somebody else has to solve the rest of the problem. It's not politics. Too many people believe that politics will close the gap, but there's many reasons why politics cannot do it. And we have to ask, what are the keys that are available to eventually make it in case we make it? That is on the next picture. You see here, this is the gap where there's no solution at the moment. And the question is now, who can do something about the gap? I think the most important issue is what is called negative emissions. So normally people think about the climate in the terms of to avoid emissions from the energy sector. But there is another way of doing it. It is to suck CO2 out of the atmosphere. So by getting the CO2 out, you can also close the gap. And there is 2 wonderful mechanisms to do that. One is planting trees, and the other is to create humus in agriculture. So if you make a desert into a garden to produce food, you suck CO2 out of the atmosphere. And if you plant trees and then use the forest to build houses, if the timber becomes an essential resource, then yes, by creating these negative emissions, you can also close the gap. And then you win time for decarbonization. So one important message is we can achieve the goal if we win time by creating negative emissions, and planting trees is a very important element, and planting 1 billion trees is even more wonderful. Also here, we have to make one difference in talking. People talk about investing in planting. But there is 2 types of investing. One thing is to invest into trees so you become an entrepreneur in forests. Another thing is you put yourself climate neutral. Each person in this room can put itself climate neutral. You can do it by buying certificates about negative emissions. The money is then lost. That is a lost investment. But what you have for the investment is that you can honestly call yourself climate neutral, and you help those people that are entrepreneurs in creating forests to finance their business. So the most important thing is that we have people that put themselves climate neutral by paying for certificates as lost investment. And then we need business people or Plan for the Planet to plant. But planting is something that should generate income by using the timber, by getting food out of the forest, and the forests do positive things for all 17 SDGs. We call that the co-benefits of forests. Now the question is, who is primarily asked to contribute? From our point of view, it's the so-called top emitters. Top emitters are people who emit 500 tons of CO2 a year, 1,000 tons of CO2. It's people with a very elaborated living style. It's people who are rich, who have a really full life of all kind of everything, and that is okay. The only thing is they should compensate for their CO2 emissions. There is 2-3% of the global population that creates about 1/3 of the emissions. If these people compensate, the climate problem is manageable. And one of the best ways of compensating is to forests and to agriculture. And maybe trees is the most wonderful example we have because it is connected so much with life in all its dimension. So what says the last side here? It says, become active, become climate neutral, do the lost contributions, motivate politics to do a clever certification and motivate others to do the same. The trillion tree thing is the right thing to do, where politics alone cannot do it.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. You can give it back to the lady back there. Yeah. So now we know why we need to do this. I think the next question that sort of automatically pops up in people's minds is, where are we going to put all those trees? I mean, is there enough space to put 1 trillion trees? It's quite a few, 1 trillion. It's really an impressive number. We have the person here, Professor